Hello and welcome back to the channel. So a lot of you will know that I did a video and then a follow-up video on my feelings on the whole Ark can of worms that I discovered and that no one really knew how to play AT. And it all kind of revolves around basically rules as written versus rules as intended. And yeah, so off the back of that, out of the blue, I got a comment on the original video from none other than James Hewitt, who was part of the team, as he says, who wrote Adeptus Titanicus. And he wrote a really lengthy comment, and as you can see, there it is. You would never have seen this unless you trawled through the comment section. He's written a rather detailed and important disclaimer, so it's very important you take note of that. I've also put a small one at the beginning of the video, so as much as James was very integral to the game, he's not with GW, it's not his property, this is not an FAQ, this is just a conversation, and he was kind enough to put a comment on the whole firing thing. So I'll flash up the rule. You can read all that. There it is. I mean, the best thing with this video is pause it, screenshot it, whatever, if you want to take your time and read stuff. So yeah, here's the rule. He then puts determine whether the target is within the attacking weapon's firing arc. And then the change is, if the target is not within the weapon's firing arc, the attack is wasted. So essentially, if it's in that front arc, you're good to go. That was kind of what he's getting at. He does still mention about edge cases, and if you're not sure and you can't tell, and I replied to James, and I kind of said, is this because, you know, when you've got the arc template and a couple of titans that might be so far away, it's very hard to tell by eye. If I've got a little picture up there for you. The rule was probably not written, and I sort of mentioned this as well, with the intention that, you know, all AT players I know will have a laser marker thing, so we can draw that line of sight off the arc template. So essentially, he's kind of put, you know, the base, but then he still mentions this, you know, if you're not sure, use the center, and I'm only assuming because I never got a full answer, and I'll go into that in more detail about that. But that's what he's put, and that he sees as the intention. He then goes on saying how the base wasn't that really important, and they could often tell anyway, and a true line of sight. So do read that, and yeah, make of it what you will. So that was the original comment. James then got in touch again, and I popped an email to him with a few questions about some other rules from the main rulebook, and let's have a look at those. So this was the reply from James. He actually goes into detail about how they write the games and the tools they use to do that. So I'm not going to read that out. You can go through that, and it's really interesting. And you know, thanks James if you do see this video, for being so decent and so cool about it. And not only did he take the time to reply, but he really went in some detail, and that was pretty cool. So yeah, thank you. I did ask about the whole line of sight and arc thing, like I was saying, with the lasers and the templates, and he then goes at the bottom, would go into more detail, and he said he'd do that another time. So I haven't got that reply, and you know, if James does or doesn't, that's obviously down to him, but he kind of left it with that comment. So you know, essentially, if you want to play center of the base and majority of the base, hey, that's cool, you can do that, but he did sort of, you know, comment with a clearer understanding or intention maybe. So let's move on to the first question. Okay, I got the first two questions on the first section here. So one was an interesting one. Now I was going to do a whole video on this, but James answered the questions, so I don't need to. This was about knights, and it says basically when you target them, it very specifically says shooting attacks and an iron shield. So do knights get ion shield saves all the time, or is it just against shooting attacks, as the book says? And again, interesting one. So he basically says you could play it one or two ways, you know, and they were basically using like the 40k kind of narrative vibe to it. And the narrative is a massive thing in James's writing, as you see in later on parts, which is great because it's that kind of game. And basically he would reword the ion shield thing, so it would work against any attack that doesn't have the melee trait, or it works for any attacks. And he basically says he would lean towards the second one, like any attack. It's just simpler. I like the idea of trying it with just the melee thing. I don't know if it would make too big a deal in a game. It would be interesting with knights attacking other knights, and warhounds their smash attacks would be a little bit more useful in that instance. So yeah, have a look at that in the book about the knights and shooting attacks, and James has answered that question. Okay, another one that crops up was Falling Titans, another divisive rule. I've never really seen why you would do it this way. If you think about the way Titans moves and Void Shield, it's never made sense to me, but you know, everyone's viewpoints are obviously different. Falling Titans, do you get Void Shield saves from Falling Titans? And I basically said, is it, you know, how is that any worse, a Titan falling to one walking through a Void Shield? You know, this game is, you know, these things aren't fast, it's a lumbering fall. I always imagine it, you know, falling through the Void Shield. And yeah, he's answered, he's put was always to follow the narrative, and a Titan falling another Titan isn't really any different from a Titan punching another Titan. So no Void Shields were intended for Falling Titans. You drop in those voids and you collide with it. So again, if you want to play it that way, that's cool. I'm not telling anyone how to play AT, but this is just really interesting points of view from, you know, the writer itself. Okay, so next question was split fire, just in case. Really, do you target? Do you pick your targets for all your weapons before you fire? Which I think is fairly clear. I've got that in my how to play. Or can you pick a target for one, fire, resolve, then pick another target if you wish, and so on. So that was the question. James really goes into quite a lot of depth. Again, I'm not going to read all this out, about the narrative and what it would be like for the Princeps in the cockpit, and it's really cool, and it's a really like detailed, lengthy answer. So read that, enjoy that. But at the end of it, the outcome, the answer from James is you do pick all your targets first and then resolve the attacks. So yeah, do read that. It's very cool. That clears up for anyone, if you like, because this is not official FAQ, the split fire rule. Okay, so the last one, interesting one, this was brought to my attention. The Firestorm trait with the template. Do you have to pick a target basically, or can you just slap that template down and try and hit as many things as you like? And yeah, James put, yeah, this game's a mess, isn't it? No, not at all, James, it's not a mess. There's just interpretations, and I think where we've got the main rulebook, and then we've also had other books come out. This is why this is very much focused on the main rulebook stuff, because James was involved in it. You get overlaps, don't you, with new books and old rules, and it doesn't always work. But James is basically saying, yeah, you know, what would be better, or the intention would be, if you can just slap that template down and try and hit as many targets as you can. So do read that, you know, read everything word for word. I'm just trying to make the video short and easy for those that don't want to do any reading. But yeah, do screenshot these, pause it, whatever, and actually read James's answers, because they're all really good, and he's put a lot of effort into this email, and it's really, I've said before, but it's really, really decent of him. So there you go, quick little video for you, really interesting one. It's just like into the mind of a rules writer, and if you weren't sure how you wanted to play a rule, this might sway you to play it one way or the other. and just gives you that little insight. And it just goes to show that rules as written and rules as intended, and especially hindsight for James, like looking at what he's written and then going back to it thinking, yeah, maybe I should do this, you know, is really interesting. And I hope you find it interesting too. You know, I for one, you know, I'm making battle reports, so people have got to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing if there's a rule, and especially for people that are running events, you know, they've got to write a rules pack, they've got to write probably their own FAQ, because we haven't had one from Games Workshop for a long time, and there's so many little things that, like I say as well, with new books overlapping old books, that is a little bit fuzzy, let's say. But essentially, just agree with your opponent, have a good time, and yeah, enjoy AT like we all do. So yeah, that's it from me. Special SOP, and I will see you in the next video.